Okay, well, good to have you here today. I'm doing something different with my notes. If you've ever looked at my notes, you could probably teach my lessons off my notes if you know how to read. I mean, that's so today. These are my notes. That's it. All right. So if you don't participate, this will be a very, very short lesson. All right. And so I want you to do that with me today. I am just trying to get my heart rate down. We came in. I don't know if there was an energy spike to the church. It happens occasionally. But every piece of electronic equipment that we've touched was acting weird. And the soundboard, we couldn't get anything into it or out of it. Usually, if you got amp issues, it's out. But we couldn't even get sound into the computer. So we called our dear friend Mark Hale, and I think he's got us going. If not, you guys just need to listen real clear. And the congregational music will be you singing out as loud as you can. So help me out on that if that's still the case. Either way, you should be singing out real strong. Right? Preston, you going to... All right, very good. He's looking at me like, I don't know about this. Very good. Turn your Bibles to Mark chapter 25. This is a parable that's often used, often misused. I've heard this be justification for many, many things. But today we're going to look at it. Matthew 25. I might have. Matthew 25. Yeah, you found something new there, right? If it's in Mark 25. Mark's the shortest of the Gospels. So this is in the Olivet Discourse. Jesus preaching basically his last sermon to his disciples from the Mount of Olives. And he gets to verse 14. And he's talking about the kingdom of heaven. And it says, "For the kingdom of heaven is as a man traveling into a far country who called his own servants and delivered unto them his goods. And unto one he gave 5 talents, to another 2, and to another 1, and to every man according to his several ability. And straightway took his journey. Then he that had received the 5 talents went and traded with the same, and made them other 5 talents. And likewise he that received 2, he also gained other 2. But he that had received 1 went and digged in the earth, and hid his Lord's money. After a long time the Lord of those servants cometh, and reckoneth with them. And so he that had received 5 talents came and brought other 5 talents, saying, Lord, thou deliverest unto me 5 talents. Behold, I have gained beside them 5 talents more. So 5 became 10. His Lord said unto him, Well done, thou good and faithful servant. Thou hast been faithful over a few things. I will make thee ruler over many things. Enter thou into the joy of the Lord. He also that had received 2 talents came and said, Lord, thou deliverest unto me 2 talents. Behold, I have gained 2 other talents beside them. 2 became 4. His Lord said unto him, Well done, good and faithful servant. Thou hast been faithful over a few things. I will make thee ruler over many things. Enter thou into the joy of the Lord. Then he which had received the 1 talent came and said, Lord, I knew thee that thou art a hard man, reaping where thou hast not sown, and gathering where thou hast not strawed. And I was afraid, and went and hid thy talent in the earth. Lo, there thou hast, that is thine. His Lord answered and said unto him, Thou wicked and slothful servant, thou knewest that I reap where I sowed not, and gathered where I had not strawed. Thou oughtest therefore to have put my money to the exchangers. And then at my coming I should have received mine own with usury. Take now therefore the talent from him, and give it unto him which hath 10 talents. And I won't go into the rest of that. All right. So let's look at this a little bit. This is an account that many of you have heard. If you haven't, then this is a new one for you, and we'll go through this together. We have 4 people involved in this, right? The first one is what it says there, a man traveling into a far country. All right, so we have this man that is sort of, we'll say, the master of this. And who would that be? Who's that represent? Christ. God. right? All right. And then we have servant. We have person 1, 2, and 3 that are. It says servants. Who are they? Mick's with me. All right. Thank you, Mick. Yeah. Now, this was specifically to the Jews that he's speaking, but this applies to us as well as Christians. So, we have Christ, we have God speaking. He's gone into this far country, and he has given his servants, which are the Christians, he has given them these talents, and they're supposed to take them. What's a Bible term for being given something and watch care over it? What's a Bible term for that we use? Steward. Thank you. Awesome. So, steward. We would call that stewardship. All right? They have the stewardship over the talents that were given them. Now, stewardship is, I guess it's a term that's not used a lot. We use it, you'll hear any people that are like green type people, the stewardship of the earth's resources that we've been given. You hear that? That's about the only time you really hear that. In businesses, when they're talking about being green, the stewardship of the resources, how there are things that are so they can be carbon neutral and all that kind of stuff. Are you with me on that? You hear that stuff? Okay. We just watched some commercial last night at some show we were watching, and they were so proud of themselves that their carbon footprint was less than when they started for a mattress. Good for you. All right. We should take care of the earth without a doubt. I'm just not crazy going nuts about it. All right. So, stewardship. So, God has given these Christians, this man has given his servants stewardship over talents. Now, the money that was given to them is a very large amount. As servants, it was beyond what they deserved to have, for lack of a better term. It was graciously given to them, all right? The grace of God has given us the things that we have. Now, by talents here, what could this refer to? Yeah, let's put some of those out there. So we've got our money, obviously. What else? Anybody else?
Time.
What? Time.
Skills.
Skill set.
I'm going to say our salvation, because they can just sit on salvation and do nothing with it.
Okay, I'll give you that. Abilities. Skills, abilities. One of the things that when I first started coming to Friendship, Jason Berger, his parents, Steve and Donna Berger, the one thing that hit me as a young college-age student was their stewardship of their belongings, their house, their car, it was for the Lord's use. The way they did it just struck me so vividly that they used that. So I would say your possessions as well, or and we'll say possession. Is that two S's? Two S's? I like that. I like that. All right. Stuff.
I'm looking at that skill one, and there's just almost an inexhaustible list.
Yes, I agree.
I mean, God gifts us in so many different ways. I don't even mean stuff.
Yeah.
I'm talking about, like some people have the gift of music or speaking or, generosity or like building stuff.
Yeah. When you look at the Old Testament, when God calls the Israelites to build the tabernacle, he says, go find this specific guy, all right? Go find this specific guy, and then he gets another guy, and I forget their names, it starts with a B, and that guy knows how to make all the furniture. He's just got this skill set. He's like a Scott Hale. He can work with wood, and he can do all those kinds of things. You got other people that have talents that might be counseling and working with people's the issues that they have in life. So stewardship is not, when we say talents, it actually means talent that we have, but it also means many other things. You'll hear preachers, they'll say time, talent, because they like to be alliterated and everything, and treasure. And they'll sum everything up. Brother Preston would use those three all the time. And that sort of sums up all of these different items. So, God has given these Christians stewardship over the things these items in their life. Now, here's the mentality of this. Do you think of the items in your life, all of those, as something you have stewardship over, or that they are yours to do with whatever you want? I developed this talent. I did this. I worked myself to this position. I did that. Now, yes, God gave you the skill to do that, but I can tell you this, He can take it away just like that. Right? And He's not up there with a hammer wanting to do that. He's a loving God, and He's giving you those for a reason. But do you see yourself as a steward over them? Every time this time of year reminds me of that with my opportunities to sing. Why? Because it's allergy season. Throughout the rest of the year, I can sing unencumbered. I cannot speak today, sorry. Unencumbered. It gets this season, for like the past 5 or 6 years since Angie's brother Matt got married, I have lost my voice some point in May every year. Huh? Yeah, it's his fault, without a doubt. So it can be taken away. But God has given us these things. Here's the thing. These aren't deserved. They're given to you. Whatever bundle of that is that you have that someone else doesn't have, God has given you that specific amount for a purpose. Be it 5 or 2 or 1 in the account of this story here. God has given you that specifically to be a steward. So grace, we see here, is the heart of stewardship. The grace of God, He's given us these things, and it is out of His abundance of grace, the heart that He has for you, that He's given this to you as not owner, but steward over those. Now, you've heard this probably many times, but do we think of this? Now, here's the thought that I want us to look at. Do we look at it as entitlement? We are in the entitlement age. Many of you do not think that way. I understand. Many people do. Your kids are being bombarded by this from every angle. You deserve this. You deserve this. And if you think about it, you have as well. I mean, that's why you might have gone out to get that coney at 8 o'clock at night. Or, you're entitled to this. You deserve this, all right? My big thing is there is nothing like a cold, crisp Coca-Cola, fountain Coca-Cola from McDonald's after preaching. And I go, I deserve this tonight. That kind of thing. Actually, it's become I need this tonight, but that's another thing. And God gives us these things to be stewards over them, and I want us to think of it. If think of how this is. God has graciously given this to you, and He wants you to grow those items that He has given you. There's a difference in being the steward versus being done as a contract. If God was to, in this story, if this man was to go to a bank and say, here are my 5 talents, I'm signing basically a contract with you that you will go and invest them and you will do this and you will do this and you will do this. There is an expectation because that is a contract when it's over, right? That's not how God's working with us. We are stewards of it, meaning He has given them to us graciously out of love for you to develop and for you to grow them as well. Isn't that neat? Because He knows at first we're not going to. We're not going to realize that. We're not going to behave that way until we realize the grace of God has given these things to us, and then He's going to allow us to develop them in our life. So the first thing we see here is that grace is at the heart of stewardship. Now, when we realize that, we start to look at it. Now, what happens is verses 14 and 17. It really sets it up. He gives the one guy how many? 5. The other guy He gives, and the other guy 1. So the guy who gets 5, he goes out and he doubles it. The guy who has 2, he goes out and doubles it. The guy that has 1, he buries it. He's like, oh, no, I can't, this isn't going to be good. And we see the guy that had 5 and 2. The guy that had 2 could easily be looking at the other guy and say, oh, I doubled mine too. Why didn't you give me 5? Right? There could easily be this contention, this restlessness in that why didn't you give me as much as you gave this person? But when we realize that our talent has been given to us in grace, God's given this to us out of His love for what we need, what you need in your life, for you to develop, for you to grow. It changes our mentality on that. And we find that in that understanding, grace gives us sort of inspires self-awareness of who we are. Jacob, my son Jacob, is at a very fun age right now. That sounds like he's a little boy. I don't mean that. But he's at a really awesome stage of life in that his gifts and talents are starting to flourish. And opportunities are coming open for that. Many of you remember that when the first time you were asked to do something and you taught for the first time. The first time you got to open the Bible and share Christ with someone. And all these things that were being put into you, now they're starting to peak, and you're like, I'm not talented in this. I'm not good with this. I'm great at this, or I can do this well. I see that I can advance in this. And there's some self-awareness of the gifts that God has given. Now, when I'm discovering that, and when I'm developing those things in my life, be it in any of these areas, I'm aware of what God's doing in my life. There's a self-awareness that He's using me to do these different things. And it takes away the resentment that somebody else has something I don't want, and it gives me contentment. Contentment isn't, I don't want to do better. I'm good where I'm at. I don't want to do better. I don't want to develop. That's not contentment. Contentment is, I am satisfied with what God has given me to grow and to develop in my own life. All right? One's laziness. The other one is true contentment. And we have here where he's talking about true contentment in his life. The enjoyment of grace. Do you have that? Do you have an enjoyment in the grace that God has given you? Not just your salvation, the area that God's working and using of your life. Everything else could be chaos. But God has given you things in your life You are a blessing to others, and you are developing and you are growing in those. And it crucifies jealousy. When we allow this to occur, it crucifies jealousy. I like that. Jealousy will destroy you. And you feel there's a hammer over you, all those types of things. It's just one of those things that we don't need. It also, well, let me ask you, when this occurs, what other things do you think it takes care of in your life? Anyone? Purpose? I love that. So many people living without a purpose. I'm running out of spots. Purpose in life, which, yeah, contentment, because you have a purpose.
I think it draws you closer to the Lord.
Yeah.
Like when you become self-aware and content. So you can like focus on Him.
Closer walk.
Yeah.
Yeah. Peace. Yeah. Peace, joy, close. I mean, those are good summations of the contentment. Mike?
You're crucifying jealousy. It helps resist temptation.
Good, good.
I think about all the times maybe I see somebody with a certain skill and I focus on that I'd like to be able to do that.
Confidence. True confidence, yeah.
It frees you to develop this in others because you're not so worried about they're going to do bad things or whatever. It frees you to
Which is what? Say that again. What you?
frees you to develop.
And not worry about the others, which is basically competition. One thing. Every pastor, not every pastor, but a lot of pastors struggle with this. You see your friend in the ministry at another church, they're doing awesome, and you just had maybe a really hard week. I mean, there's this, you have two choices. I'm going to rejoice with them that God is working in their ministry and using them, or I'm going to be jealous because my church isn't growing like their church is growing, or mine's not doing this. And I tell you that you got to have your heart right when that's, and it's that way, I mean, in a job situation, right? Some job comes up and you've worked hard and they've worked hard and, God's, they're a good friend, or even if they're not, God's developing them as well and He has a different path for you, and man, oh, that's a tough one. So.
It's weird because, I have to catch myself. I work with a lot of older guys, and I'm doing like 3 times the work of everybody, at least in the office. But I listen to the other guys talk about how they're going down and getting in the boat or campsites, and I'm still, not, I'm content with what I have at home. But I'm listening to these guys, how nice it would be to have some of the, material things they would have. But I'm also working 3 times as hard. You know what I mean? So
Yeah.
sometimes that you develop. It's not really a jealousy, but maybe because it's
What
like,
am I doing wrong?
why am I not at that level and I'm doing more?
Sure, yeah.
So that's a tough.
No, that is a tough one, without a doubt. Turn to John chapter 3, verse 27. It goes with that, what he just said, what Scott just said. This is John the Baptist. He's speaking, and he says, John answered and said, a man can receive nothing except it be given him from heaven. a man can receive nothing except it be given him from heaven. Now that's speaking of, in context, a little more specific, but it does follow along with what we're talking about here as well. And the contentment, the self-awareness, the restlessness that can subside from that. Do we all have restlessness in our life when we're making decisions? That's a different type of restlessness, I believe. The restlessness of envy and strife and all of those things. When I know that God has given me this, by His grace, I am aware of it, I'm content. And then lastly, we see here, He demands it with that, knowing that God's given us this, and He's given us different amounts. Let me ask you this. What happened to the guy with 1 talent? How was, when the master returned, what was the response? He was scolded. He was accountable. There was an accountability. Grace demands accountability. Not in the fact of like a loss of salvation of something. We know once a person's saved, they're always saved. But if you look, the guy with 5, he doubled his. The guy with 2 doubled his. The guy with 1 did not. And yet, even though he was only given one thing, the master still expected the same out of him. He expected him to use the talents, the gift that was given him, this extraordinary amount of money, to be out there working and doing with what he was supposed to do with this. And accountability is real. When we get to heaven, there will be a time of judgment for Christians. It is different than the judgment, the great white throne judgment, where those that are lost will be determining if their soul was written in the Lamb's Book of Life, and they'll be cast into outer darkness or into the lake of fire. That's for the lost. That's eternity. But He tells us that our deeds, those things that we've done with our life, will be basically put under fire. And if it is wood, hay, and stubble, what happens to it? It's burned up. You know, those things, what have we done with the talent that has been given to us? Have we developed it? Have we increased it? Be it the possessions we're given, the souls that have been put under our care to develop them, to reach more, whatever it might be. Are we developing that? There is an accountability for how we use our life. Are we using our daily life as the witness that we're supposed to be with the talents that you've been given? Yours is completely different than mine, that's completely different than the other person that's sitting next to you, but you are still held accountable for how you're going to use that. It is not an excuse that Bob next to me has way more talented than I am, or that he has way more this or way more that. We all know people with much less talent and ability that have used it, have developed it, and they're being a good steward of the things that have been given them. He's not here, and he probably won't watch this, so I'm going to mention it. I've known John Jarvis since he was in 6th grade. Believe it or not, I must have been like 2 years older than him. I don't know. I was his teacher in 6th grade. And I remember when he came in, and there is nothing we did as a youth group that young man did not do. We went to the batting cages. He was in the batting cages. We you name it, he was doing it. He knows more about sports than probably anyone here. He coaches our softball team. He runs a backyard Bible club site. He has been given just a wonderful mind. He has been given a heart for souls. And he has developed those, and he is using them. And he is accountable. He knows he's accountable for that, and he is making the most of those abilities, all right? And I only use that as an example because it's, an extreme example for us. But we see this in our life. Different level of gifts don't dilute the accountability that we have before God. Let that sink in. Our different level of talents do not dilute the accountability that we have God has graciously given us these things. And it first comes down to, do you see yourself as a steward? That's a hard thing to do. America is a gimme, 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 all I can get type mentality. And the American dream in many areas is contrary to the Word of God. And this is one of those. And if we all live our lives as stewards, will we be taken advantage of occasionally? Yes, we will. But I prefer to live in a country and work in a church and serve with other people that this is our mentality. Because we're content, the jealousy is not there as much, the resentment is not there as much. All of these things, this is how God wants us to live as a Christian body. This leads itself to being a body of Christ, where we are helping each other out, where the arm is helping the other arm, and the eye, all the parts of the body working together in that way. If we're not this, that never happens. It just can't. There's competition, there's backbiting, all of the things that are not becoming of a Christian. So, all right, anybody? Yeah, go ahead.
In that teaching class that I attended the very first session, I don't remember who was I don't know the person's name that was teaching it for the first teacher session.
Oh, okay, yeah, all right.
But someone made the comment, and it may have been the person leading it or someone else, but it just really has stuck with me, and it was the best ability is availability.
Oh, yeah.
Because, and I say that because, like, when I first became a Christian, like, I didn't know anything. And Josh, I only went to church because he invited me. And obviously he helps with everything. And just, that's how he is. And so, like, he's like, hey, the youth is going to go do this. You want to help with this? And I'm like, okay. Like, so just being available pours into gifts that God has to give. And if you're available, like, even if I have no talents for anything, like literally, like it was like filling drinks, like I can pour it, and this is before kids, like I could still fill a drink, So I wasn't even a mom, and I didn't really even know how to clean, but I was available, and I feel like, God can use anybody.
Amen.
They're just available.
I heard a guy, he was talking about volunteering in the church. He called it not chutes and ladders, but he called it lakes and ladders. He says, as new Christians, as people first coming into a church, when you don't know really where God has gifted you, he says, get in that lake part of it. Start climbing up a couple different ladders, like climbing up this one with, working with kids or something like that. Nope, that's not for me. Back down into the lake. And then you go back, So you're just doing these general things at the cursory level there, and then as you realize, oh, this is for me, start going up that ladder of opportunities in that. And I thought that was a great example for that. Yeah.
My graduates, I get asked this a lot, because they have these aspirations of getting to certain levels in the career, and they always say, well, how do you do that? And that's always it's the same answer. It has less to do with talent and more to do with, I say, just say yes to opportunities. And you do a good job, maybe give you another opportunity.
I agree. I remember when I was working at the chemical plant, I was in a group. They did not think of this acronym before they sent out the memo. Steve, you'll appreciate this. It was the Process Improvement Group. What's that? PIG. Yeah, it's like, well done, guys. So I was in the PIG group, and of course we got razzed quite a bit about that. But I was the only one under 30. I was the only one under 50. I was like 27, 28 years old when I was in it. Everybody else is in their mid-50s. And opportunities would come up. And for any of you that are older and have been doing stuff for a while, new opportunities come up. I'm in that group now. My mentality is, do I want one more thing on my plate? Do I want the hassle with that? At that age, I was like, yeah, I'll do it. Yeah, I'll do it. Gives me exposure, gets me this, all those types of things. And from from a business standpoint, it's a wonderful thing. Yeah, take every opportunity you get. But from a Christian standpoint, I would say the same thing. Don't get yourself so busy that you can't live a content life, but take opportunities, see where your talents are, and allow those to develop. Yeah, Mick?
I just also want to encourage you guys to remember time and money on there too. We never talked too much about it because we didn't want to be too prideful, but there was a time we were really, really struggling. And two father-in-laws of people doing this class, there were times where we didn't know where there's an exact amount of money we needed to get by, and we didn't know where it was going to come from. Two different times. And they came to us and put in two different times a man in this church, two different men walked up, put an envelope in my hand, and said, God told me to give this to you. Dad, no one should talk about it, just put it here. That was the exact money we needed both times. And then another brother that's actually in this class, a time came up when I could run a U-Haul, and I needed people that would move, and he gave me his time. He's the only person that showed up. He brought a trailer. And he helped me move, and then later that same gentleman gave me a lawnmower at a time where I could have maybe sold some stuff to buy a lawnmower. He just gave me one. So now we're at a point where we're no longer struggling. God has blessed us so much over the last few years, and but you never know. That's inspired me to know that it's now that we are doing well, it's not my money, it's not my time. So open your heart to that, because you don't know what the blessing could be.
Amen.
Might be a little funny, I actually read this morning. When you read that, it's really kind of interesting, at least to me, is that the servant with the 5 talents and the servant with the 2, if you actually look at the words, at least this morning, they're the exact same result.
Yeah.
They both get the exact same after this life. Just like us, when we get there in heaven one day, we're all going to the same spot. You just got to choose to do it.
Amen.
So it don't matter if you have 5, 2, a million, we're all going to get the same exact thing. Just got to wait to get there.
Just be faithful in that. Amen. All right. Let's be dismissed in prayer. Yeah. Oh, thank you. Thank you. Sorry, I forgot something. We are going to be introducing the beginning of this summer